NASCAR is throwing the book at Hendrick yet again this weekend. Some big appeals start coming through, and owners boycott a meeting? Let's dive in. Let's start with the boycott. All NASCAR team owners decided not to attend a meeting with officials on Wednesday that was supposed to talk about permanent charters in the sport, and the owners did not want to attend the meeting because they didn't want to solely focus on just the charters, as they wanted to also discuss the business model. If you guys already didn't know, owners last year in October were very vocal about how they did not like the business model and how they were hoping for a restructure with this new TV deal coming up. And they considered it broken, as, if you don't already know, NASCAR makes the majority of the money, same thing with the racetracks, and the teams make less money, hence why teams have to use outside sponsorship to sponsor and fund their organizations and their teams. That's why some teams that are smaller have to have as many sponsors as they do, because they need all those sponsors to pay for the fact that they can take a car to the racetrack every single week and pay off employees and all this stuff. So it's huge. And the teams are frustrated with the charters, as the charters are not permanent. You can purchase a charter from NASCAR, and NASCAR has the ability to revoke a charter, or after a certain amount of time, your charter has to be renewed. And at the end of 2024, almost all of the team's charters will have to be renewed by the end of the 2024 season. And the teams are not a huge fan of that, especially because that's going to cost them a ton of money to have to put back into the sport when they're not making enough money back. And it's huge. The teams are hoping that they can work out a deal with NASCAR. So, A, with this new TV deal and restructure, they can make more money from the sport. And B, they also want charters to become permanent. When you buy a charter, you can't just lose the charter unless you sell it, because NASCAR has the ability to revoke a charter if they want to, depending on performance, or other factors could be thrown into account. And teams don't like that, especially by the fact that they have to renew and pay for the charter pretty much again, almost like it's a subscription service to own a charter in NASCAR. And if the owners in NASCAR can't figure out something soon, especially with the fact that the TV deal is about to start discussions probably around the summertime, we are looking at something that could be a very big and also, in my opinion, a very negative storyline throughout this season. So we'll be keeping a close eye on any further development with everything around the situation, which I guarantee you guys, there will be a lot of development around the situation. Now, let's go over some appeal results. Let's start with Denny Hamlin, who is appealing for his actions with Ross Chastain at the end of the Phoenix race, where he openly admitted on his podcast the day after the race to dumping Chastain at the end of the race, bringing him to the back of the field with him, because as Hamlin said, well, I'm going back here, so I'm taking you back here with me, buddy. NASCAR responded by fining Denny Hamlin $75,000 and docked him 25 points. And the appeals panel made their decision yesterday, and they have decided to uphold the penalties. So, no changes for Denny Hamlin, who is stuck with the fine and the penalty. Now, probably the more big one and more significant one was with Colleague Racing and Justin Haley, who were penalized for the same thing Hendrick was penalized for, that being the hood louvers. And the appeals panel decided to uphold a majority of the penalty, only changing that instead of losing 100 points, Colleague and Justin Haley would only lose 75 points. So, when I saw this, I was shocked, especially since Hendrick got all of the points dropped, and, you know, all they had to do is pay the fine and serve the suspension. Colleague still has to pay the fine, serve the suspension, lose the playoff points, and they only gained 25 points from what they initially lost. And I am honestly very shocked. We don't know the full story of how Colleague presented their case compared to how Hendrick presented their case. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. It was different judges on the panel for this one than what Hendrick got, so maybe that played a factor into it. But it's going to be big to see how everything goes. And Colleague Racing already made an announcement, actually, saying that they will be appealing the appeal itself, because they were not happy with the result, especially saying that a week ago they saw Hendrick Motorsports get all their points back, so colleagues probably fighting for the same exact thing. Now, speaking of Hendrick Motorsports, who dodged the big bullet last week and got all their points back, they went to Richmond and had a great race weekend, winning with Kyle Larson having Josh Berry get a career best finish with second. William Byron dominated the race and probably could have been up there for the win if it wasn't for some late race misfortune. And Alex Bowman was consistent through the entire day. Kyle Larson passed hit inspection after the race, but NASCAR decided to take the 24 and the 48 car to the R&D Center. And it was taking a little bit longer than usual to get the information. Bob Procris said this on Twitter on Tuesday, saying, "Hey, we have not gotten information on the R&D stuff, so keep an eye on this because there might be penalties." And penalties were announced yesterday, where it was announced that Hendrick Motorsports, the 24 and the 48 car, were handed L1 penalties. They were docked 60 driver owner points as well as 5 playoff points, and the interim crew chiefs, Brian Camp and Greg Ives, has been suspended for the next 2 races and each fined $75,000. Now, the teams also made illegal modifications to the greenhouse of the car, so that was the issue. So this is big again for Hendrick, as Hendrick's been hit with another big penalty. Now they lose their interim crew chiefs on top of their regular crew chiefs for William Byron and Alex Bowman going into Bristol Dirt this week. They will not be getting their regular crew chiefs until after Martinsville next week, and they don't even have the interim crew chiefs, so I'll have to wait and see who are going to be on top of the pit box for Bristol Dirt and Richmond for Hendrick Motorsports. But this is big. Hendrick did already announce that they are going to be reviewing the penalties over this weekend, and they will make a decision on what their next steps are following Bristol Dirt. And NASCAR is going crazy right now. We have the owners boycotting meetings. We have all these appeals coming out. Now you have NASCAR versus Hendrick, essentially, because this is the second big penalty Hendrick has had to deal with this year. So it'll be very interesting to see how everything starts to unfold. So we'll have to keep an eye on everything because there's a lot of things going on, especially going into this Easter weekend with Bristol Dirt and everything. Now, I want to ask you guys, what do you think about everything going on in NASCAR right now, and what do you think is going to happen, whether it be with the boycott, with certain appeals? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you haven't already, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and enjoy this weekend's race at Bristol, and enjoy your Easter weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next one.